Have you ever wondered what happens when someone survives a shark attack? Imagine facing your biggest fear and fighting back. In our shark stories, you'll see how brave people did just that. If you think sharks are scary, you've got to watch this. A dedicated night surfer, Lucas Mendes, felt his soul tugged by the surf on a calm beach in Brazil. Lucas, 28, loved the ocean's gentle lapping against his board and found peace in the lap of the waves. He was a seasoned surfer with a lean body and years of experience in the water. But tonight, a strange unease crept in as he paddled under the moonlight. Lucas's board glided effortlessly through the water, and the moon cast a silver trail before him. While balancing himself to catch the perfect wave, his mind wandered back to his grandfather João, who taught him how to respect the ocean. With a twinkle of wisdom in his eyes, João Mendes would tell him, "The ocean is your friend and foe." The sound of waves breaking in the distance was all that could be heard, along with the occasional nightbird call. Lucas caught a big wave and felt the adrenaline rush every time he flew along the water. As he was about to see another wave return to the shore, his leg was suddenly jerked by a sharp, sudden tug. Panic erupted in his chest as he felt a mighty shark's grip. The attack was quick. Lucas struggled with all his strength as the shark's teeth penetrated his leg. His fists were driven by survival instinct as he punched the shark's rough skin. The shark let go of him after what seemed like an eternity. Lucas, awash in blood and shocked, clung to the board as he paddled to shore. The pain was pulsing through his body. The pain was excruciating. But his wife, Maria, and Sophia, their daughter, gave him the strength to continue. His cries for help broke the silence. Two people walking on the beach ran to his rescue. As they called an ambulance, Lucas replayed his attack, his fear, and how close he was to dying. The doctors were able to save the leg at the hospital, but the damage had been severe. Lucas was lying in his hospital bed surrounded by his worried family when he realized that the physical scars might heal, but the mental ones may never fade. His nights were filled with nightmares about dark waters, and he felt like he was being pulled down. Despite Maria's support, Lucas began to feel a growing distance between himself and the ocean. She sat beside him and held his hand, whispering encouraging words. Lucas started his physical therapy after a few weeks. When he first tried to stand up, lightning-like pain shot through his leg. He was still determined. He thought about his daughter's laugh and the promise that he made to himself to surf again. The psychological scars were deeper. Once a source of solace and happiness, the ocean now appeared as a vast, dangerous entity. Lucas realized he would have to confront his fears to feel whole again. He returned to the sea to not surf, but rather to sit and listen to it. Lucas sat in the sand and watched the waves crash, feeling fear and desire. He remembered his grandfather's words, that the sea teaches us more than we can imagine. Lucas decided to act on that thought. He wouldn't let the shark attack determine his life. He would surf under the moonlight to regain the connection he lost. This decision was the start of a new chapter for his recovery. It would force him to face the deepest fears he harbored. The months rolled by, and Lucas sat at the ocean's edge daily. He felt its pulse and rebuilt the bridge that separated him from the waters that had once cradled his body. The scars on his skin were a reminder of that fateful evening. His physical injuries healed. His emotional recovery took longer, with each step being met by nights of doubt and nightmares of shadowy figures under the moonlit sea. Lucas began to feel a stirring inside as the anniversary of the assault approached, a mixture of fear and defiance. Dr. Helena Sousa encouraged him to set an objective for the day, emphasizing the importance of facing his fears and celebrating his victory over them. Lucas knew exactly what he had to do. He would surf again not just to prove he could, but to reclaim the joy and freedom of surfing he once experienced. The preparation for the night started weeks in advance. Lucas began by taking small steps and wading in the shallow water, feeling the familiar touch of the ocean against his legs. Maria was there for him, always, and often joined him on the beach, where Sophia splashed around in the water, building sandcastles. Her laughter soothed his frayed nerves. Lucas stood on the edge of Praia da Pipa Beach with his surfboard in his arms the night before the anniversary. The moon looked like a crescent of silver, just as it had when he had gone through his ordeal. He felt his heart pound with fear and an increasing sense of victory against the memories that had attempted to chain him. Lucas waded into the water. The familiar chill wrapped around him like a longtime friend. As he paddled, his muscles began remembering their old rhythm, and a calmness washed over him. He was no longer the man who was attacked. He was more robust and more resilient. Lucas paddled with determination and steadied his body as the first wave approached. He stood, balancing his weight with an ease that belied his rapid heartbeat. The wave lifted him like a giant gentleman. The small group of friends and family who supported him cheered as he rode to the shore. Lucas was relieved to return to the beach, feeling like the waves had lifted some of the darkness from him. He hugged Maria, whose presence had been a constant force on his turbulent journey. Sophia ran to him and wrapped her arms around his legs, her excitement evident in her actions. She looked up at him with eyes full of wonder and magic, imagining him surfing the moon. Lucas and his family sat around a small fire that night. The ocean seemed to them less like a monster than a friend who taught him an important lesson. The sea had forever changed him. He knew it would be a long road back to recovery. He also knew that each time he faced waves, he could regain a part of himself he thought he lost. Lucas Mendes's story, in which he faced the jaws and depths of his fears, will be told for many years at Praia da Pipa. His story is not only a story of survival, it's also a testament to how the human spirit can overcome and find renewal at the same place that brought it to its knees. Jessica Harper dressed with the calm focus that was her trademark at the Coast Guard station near the Farallon Islands. This part of California, known for its swirling water and great white sharks patrolling the depths, was not a stranger to danger. The 32-year-old rescue diver had a strong connection with the ocean. She respected its power and the creatures that lived within. The radio sounded urgent on that cold April morning. It broke the quiet of dawn. A diver was reported to be stranded in shark-infested water near the islands. His equipment had failed, leaving him vulnerable. Jessica and her team jumped on the rescue boat without hesitation. The cool ocean spray washed their faces while they raced to save time. Jessica saw the diver as the boat approached the coordinates. His orange suit was a striking contrast to the deep blue. As she prepared to dive, Jessica could see the diver's relief as they arrived. She was not afraid, but the mission's adrenaline made her heart beat faster. She drew a deep breath and plunged into the icy waters. The underwater world was a dance between shadows and lights. Jessica easily navigated the ocean's murky depths with ease and reached the diver struggling to stay afloat. She smiled calmly through her mask as she approached, reassuring the diver with her presence. However, a shadowy figure loomed above as she secured a harness to him. The commotion attracted a great white shark to circle closer. Jessica's instincts as a rescue diver were strong, and she acted quickly. She placed herself between the diver and the shark as a human shield, prepared for the worst. She met the shark's eyes, ancient and unyielding. Her resolve was hardened at that moment. The shark charged with its massive body, cutting through the water at a terrifying speed. Jessica used her fins, accelerating herself and the diver, but the shark's tooth still found Jessica's leg. She felt a burning pain and a flash of white heat that threatened to plunge her into panic. She never let go of the diver. She pushed them to the surface with a powerful kick and signaled the team above. In a matter of seconds, the boat crew was there to pull Jessica and the diver from the shark's territory. Jessica's leg was bleeding profusely as the rescue boat raced back to shore. The bite was a testament to Jessica's bravery. As medics treated her injuries, the severity of her injury became apparent. Her leg had been badly injured. Her muscles were torn and recovery would take a long time. Her first thought was for the diver who was sitting nearby. His expression was mixed with guilt and gratitude, thanking Jessica for rescuing him. Jessica nodded as her gaze turned to the window, where the ocean was vast and unyielding. She was aware of the risks she would face as a rescue diver, but had no regrets, even though those were now her reality. With her bravery, she saved a person's life. After the news spread, local media hailed her as a heroine. Her story was widely shared and interviews were requested. This sparked a discussion on the dangers rescue divers face in shark-infested waters. Jessica became the focus of a public debate on balancing wildlife protection and human activity. Jessica reflected as she lay on her hospital bed with her leg bandaged. She had been a protector of human life and the Marines, and was now living up to that calling. Her story is one of sacrifice and the delicate dance between man and the natural world, a theme that resonates deeply with those who have ventured into the ocean. Jessica Harper's hospital recovery progressed slowly as the days became weeks. Her courage continued to win the hearts of many people, and she was featured in numerous news outlets discussing the dangers and heroism involved with rescue operations under dangerous conditions, while the media attention was overwhelming. It also started a conversation about safety protocols and how important being prepared is when faced with natural predators such as sharks. During her recovery, Jessica was visited by other Coast Guards and rescue divers from different stations. She even received a visit from the diver she had saved. Each visitor shared their stories and expressed admiration for Jessica's courage. Jessica began working on a proposal to improve safety measures and train rescue divers who work in shark-infested waters. Her proposal included improved protective gear, new technologies to deter sharks, and more training scenarios that simulate shark encounters. She said her proposed measures would help protect divers and make rescue missions safer and more effective. Jessica's initiative received support from diving and safety organizations. She was invited to speak at conferences and seminars, where she told her story and advocated her proposed changes. Her personal experience gave her words a powerful authenticity, and she made a compelling argument for her recommendations. Jessica's battle with her injuries was also a tough one. Though her leg would heal, it would never be the same. She underwent countless hours of physical therapy to gain strength and learn how to walk again slowly. She was constantly reminded of the accident, but she also became more determined not to let it set her back. Jessica finally had the chance to try out the water again. She returned to the ocean accompanied by a group of supportive colleagues, equipped with the new equipment she helped develop. This dive was about her fear, not about saving others. The ocean welcomed Jessica back with open arms. Jessica was a mixture of excitement and apprehension as she submerged in the incredible depths. She felt her confidence return with each stroke. She was aware of the risks, but also her strength and resilience. Jessica was confident she could face any sharks, even though she didn't see one this time. Her return to diving was a personal triumph and a testimony to her recovery. It was also a significant step in promoting safety for rescue operations. Jessica's story continues to inspire, showing that courage and determination can be used to face fears and bring about positive change for a larger community. Jessica's life appeared to be coming full circle as she continued to promote safety when rescue diving. Her journey from a harrowing experience to a beacon for change was a powerful example of how the human spirit can adapt and influence. Dr. Thomas Reed, an experienced marine biologist, stood on the rugged shores of Sable Island, with his gaze fixed toward the North Atlantic. The island, known for its wild horses and harsh terrains, was also the focal point of shark research because it was close to deep ocean currents, where many shark species were found. Thomas spent the last 10 years of his professional career studying these magnificent predators and advocating for their conservation. Thomas and his team set out on a bright morning in early summer, full of excitement and tagging equipment. The goal was to tag and track great white sharks to gather data on their migration patterns. Thomas and his team reviewed the tagging protocol as the boat cut through cold waters. The ocean was alive as they approached the designated area for tagging. Seabirds flew overhead, and shadowy sharks moved under the waves. Thomas felt the familiar thrill of what he did every day. The tagging spear was ready, and his hands were steady despite the waves. They encountered a giant female shark who glided through the water in a manner that belied its size. Thomas leaned over the side and aimed his tagging spear. It was a tense moment, a dance of man and beast who were both aware of each other. Thomas used a well-practiced motion to deploy the tag. It was a perfect fit and attached itself to the shark's fin. The shark, however, reacted violently. Its mighty tail whipped as it accelerated towards Thomas. The situation escalated in a flash. Thomas was thrown into the freezing water when the shark crashed into the side. The team was thrown into an activity frenzy to rescue Thomas. Thrusting and disoriented, Thomas felt his heart clench with fear when he saw the massive silhouette of the shark circle towards him. He had been trained as a scientist to follow protocols in such situations, but nothing prepared him for the fear he felt when he saw a great white shark in its natural habitat. The shark didn't attack again. Thomas's team managed to get him back on board despite his shaking body from shock and cold. Thomas's thoughts raced as they returned to the shore. The shark did not bite Thomas, but his encounter with it had left an indelible mark on him. Thomas struggled with his emotions on Sable Island. The incident shattered Thomas's confidence, which planted doubts about his chosen career. Sharks were always misunderstood. He believed they should be studied and protected. Now, facing the real dangers that these powerful creatures pose, he began to question his resolve. Thomas sat on the beach under the moonlight and watched the waves crash. Once a place of fascination and endless wonder, the ocean now appeared as a vast, menacing unknown. He was committed to shark conservation, but the fear of returning to the sea gnawed him. Thomas pondered the dilemma and realized his journey had reached a crossroads. Could he still advocate for these animals despite his fears? Had the incident irrevocably altered his relationship with the sea and its creatures? His internal conflict became palpable as he weighed his commitment against his fears. It was not only about whether he would return to the water, but also about how to continue contributing to a cause that he believed in while managing his trauma. It was a question of courage and conviction in the face of deep fear. Thomas Reed spent the days that followed his incident introspecting. Thomas Reed found himself in the Sable Island Research Station, surrounded by colleagues but isolated. Thomas always found an excuse to avoid joining the day's tagging excursion. He knew that he was trying to avoid the inevitable return to water. Thomas's excitement was replaced by a fearful feeling at the mere thought of it. Thomas spent the day poring over data from already deployed tags. Thomas tried to get lost in the graphs and patterns of migration, but his mind kept drifting back to that encounter. He was haunted by the image of the shark's dark, unyielding gaze, which reminded him of his vulnerability before nature's raw force. His avoidance was not unnoticed. His longtime friend and colleague, Dr. Emily Saunders, approached him one evening. They sat on the beach together as the sun sank below the horizon. She gently urged him to open up, noticing that he hadn't been swimming since that day, and asked if the research was bothering him. Thomas's fears were unspoken. He knew what to do and thought he should return to work, recognizing that his fear was not a mere shadow. It was palpable and real. He wondered how he could protect these creatures if he were terrified of them. Emily listened with understanding and acknowledged that fear is a compelling emotion. She emphasized that his commitment was just as important, noting that it was not about conquering fear, but finding a way for him to continue working despite the fear. Emily reassured him that there were many ways to contribute to conservation. Her words touched a nerve with him. Thomas stayed awake that night, thinking about how to change his perspective. He started thinking about other ways to impact shark conservation without going into the field. He found that education, policy advocacy, and remote data analyses were viable options to keep him involved in his mission. Thomas was motivated by his new perspective to develop educational programs that inform the public about shark behavior and conservation. He also developed policy proposals to promote safer research, and participated in remote monitoring projects that used satellite and drone technology to track shark movements. After a few months, Thomas's new niche was fulfilling. He became a popular speaker at schools and conferences, where he shared his story about the importance of protecting and respecting marine life. He had learned to cope with his fear and turned it into an inspiration for education and advocacy. Thomas eventually returned to the boat as an advisor rather than a dive master. He felt pride and accomplishment as he watched the new team continue to tag. He did not let his fear stop him from being dedicated. It deepened his respect and understanding for the creatures he had always admired. Thomas Reed's encounter with the shark was a life-changing experience that strengthened his resolve in unexpected and surprising ways. His journey taught him an important lesson. True courage is not the absence or lack of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it. Thomas's story was widely shared, reminding those in the conservation field that conservation is fraught, but also offers opportunities for growth and adaptation. Sarah Jennings sat on the deck of a dive boat with her eyes fixed on the glistening Great Barrier Reef. The shimmering reflections of the sun on the water starkly contrasted with the turmoil within her. 3 years had passed since a shark bite during routine diving had almost cost her a limb and stolen her peace. After countless operations and more therapy sessions, she was now here to reclaim the part of her that the ocean had taken. Sarah, a 26-year-old marine biologist, had always sought solace in the depths. The attack happened on a bright, promising day. The pain, blood, and fear were vivid in her memory. Her world was shattered, and she had to rebuild it painfully, one step at a time. Under her wetsuit were the physical scars, but they were just as visible as before. She did not make this decision lightly. Her therapist encouraged Sarah, and her dive team supported her in facing her fears. She was aware of the statistics that shark attacks are rare. But the fear wasn't about statistics. It was personal and traumatic. She was about to face it. Sarah's heart was racing as the boat approached the dive site. Through the mask, she could hear herself breathing, a mixture of dread and determination filling her. Mike, the dive master, gave her a nod of encouragement. He reassured her that she could take her time, indicating she should be ready only when she felt ready, his voice steady and comforting. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped up to the edge. The deep blue waters held her deepest fears and passions. After one last look at her supportive friends, she let herself go into the ocean. Water enveloped her in a coolness she had known and found comforting. The sounds of the world above her faded as she sank, replaced by the rhythmic sound from her breathing and the gentle hum from the sea. Coral reefs were vibrant and alive. Fish darted between them, their vibrant colors reminding her why she fell in love with them in the first place. Sarah felt her anxiety lift with each meter of descent. Her dive partner, Mike's careful observation from above, and her concentration on the dive helped to push away the anxiety. She let herself be mesmerized by the graceful glide of a turtle, the swaying sea anemones, and the sleek, unthreatening form of a minor reef shark. The dive was more than a return to work. It was also a journey to find herself. The reef, a place of trauma and beauty, symbolized Sarah's resilience. Sarah knew that the dive wouldn't erase her trauma, but it was an essential step to living with it. It also testified to her courage and a bridge towards her recovery. Sarah's connection to the coral reef was more vital than ever as she gently touched a delicate coral. The underwater world that was once a source of terror now became a source of healing and wondered in Sarah's life. Her return was more than just a dive. It was also about finding a balance between her memories and reality. This dive was her statement that she wouldn't let fear define her relationship with the ocean. Sarah Jennings grew more empowered with each minute spent underwater. Her fears started to melt as the Great Barrier Reef surrounded her. The salt water mingled with her fear in a cathartic release. She watched as the school of parrotfish nibbled on the algae-covered reef, their movements calm and purposeful. Sarah discovered a metaphor in the ocean's depths for her life, a process of recovery and growth, even when faced with adversity. Sarah swam closer to the coral bommy as she progressed in her dive. This popular gathering place for marine life captivated her with its vibrant colors and bustling activity. Sarah felt her traumas begin to lift as she watched a tiny octopus ingeniously disguise itself among the rocks. She no longer just survived. She lived fully and totally in the present. She was now indifferent to the presence of a reef shark, which had previously filled her with fear. It moved with effortless grace. Its sleek body cut through the water with precision. Sarah watched from a distance, her heart calm and her mind clear. Like the shark that attacked Sarah, this shark was an underwater creature, not a monster out to destroy. Sarah's perception changed when she realized this. Sarah realized that the ocean was not something to be feared, but a dynamic ecosystem in which every creature, including her, had a part to play. Sarah told her friend that the dive was coming to an end. The two slowly ascended to the surface, stopping at intervals to decompress. Sarah inhaled deeply when her head broke the surface. The fresh air tasted sweeter than before. She removed her mask to see the vast ocean that surrounded her. Her fear of the sea, which had previously overshadowed her love for it, diminished. It was a distant memory compared to the vivid reality of her victory. Her team congratulated and praised her, their faces bright with relief and pride. Mike smiled broadly and clapped Sarah on the back, warmly welcoming her back, indicating they had missed her presence underwater. Sarah's return was more than a personal triumph. It reverberated in her community. Other divers who had suffered similar traumas reached out to Sarah. Sarah's story sparked an in-depth discussion about the psychological impacts of such encounters and the importance of facing one's fear. She began working with a local dive school to create a program to help divers overcome their fear of diving by combining psychological counseling with gradual exposure. The program gained rapid attention and attracted divers worldwide who wanted to rediscover their love of the ocean. Sarah's position as a diving mentor and mental health advocate was solidified. Her own experiences enhanced the advice she gave. She participated in conferences and discussions on shark conservation and spoke about the importance of understanding and respecting these misunderstood animals. Sarah reflected on her experience years later with gratitude and a sense of accomplishment. She had overcome her fears by returning to the coral reef, but she also started a movement encouraging resilience and healing. She had lost a lot, but the ocean gave her back much more than she ever imagined. She had a new relationship with the ocean, defined by respect, an understanding of the sea, and a firm belief in the human spirit's ability to adapt and overcome. Her legacy was woven into the fabric and endless waters of the ocean and the diving community. Haruto has been fishing the Hokkaido coast for over 50 years. He has observed the changing sea, shifting currents, and dwindling fish from the worn-out docks in his small fishing community. Every morning he pushes his wooden boat out into the waves, determined to hold on to the life he knows and his forefathers' life. Haruto's boat was loaded with nets and lines on a cold morning in early spring. As the sun slowly rose above the horizon, the eastern sky was painted in streaks of purple and orange. Haruto, whose hands were atrophied and calloused after years of hard labor, could handle the gear quickly. His fishing was more than just a livelihood. It was also his connection to history, and a way to resist the relentless march of technology and time that threatened to change his world. Haruto's sea became choppy as he sailed further away from the shore. This was a sign that the marine habitats had changed due to shifting undercurrents. He dropped his fishing nets at a spot that was a favorite in the past. Today, as on many other days in recent months, the nets were almost empty. Haruto sighed and decided to go deeper despite the increased number of sharks drawn to the shore by stronger currents. He moved his boat further out and scanned the deep blue below him. Haruto was not warned when a colossal shape emerged from the depths. Its dark silhouette was unmistakable, a great white shark. This shark was much more giant than anything Haruto had ever seen before. The shark struck his boat before he had time to react. The impact was violent, shaking the ship violently and sending wood splinters into the air. Haruto fell and caught himself on the side as water started to seep into the damaged hull. The shark circled back, its dorsal blade slicing the water like a knife. Haruto was in danger. The boat was rapidly taking on water, and Haruto was far away from help. Haruto had to choose as the waves raged around him, and his boat began to listen. He could call for help, but it might be too late. He could either try to repair enough damage to make it to shore. He gathered his courage and grabbed the patching kit he always kept on board in case of emergency. The shark continued to brush against the boat as he worked. Haruto prayed that the patch would last long enough to return him to his village. The boat filled with water as each minute passed, testing his repair and spirit. This was more than a fight for survival. It was also a testimony to the resolve of an elderly fisherman to maintain his lifestyle in a changing world. Haruto wasn't ready to abandon the tradition that had defined his family over generations. He knew this moment was critical for him and the entire community that relied on the sea to survive and represent themselves. Haruto's fingers moved quickly, and the sea spray stung him as he struggled to keep his boat on its feet. Each patch was a desperate attempt to beat time and nature. The shark circled, possibly curious or confused at the boat's persistent approach. Its dark fin was a constant reminder that danger lay below. Haruto was occupied with his work when he began to think about his village. For centuries, the community relied on oceans for food, a sense of identity and purpose. He thought about the young people who had fled to the cities in search of a life less dependent on nature. Haruto was not just patching up his boat, but also trying to repair a way of life drifting with the tides. Haruto took advantage of the calm created by the temporary securing of the hull. The old gears groaned in protest as he started the engine and guided his vessel home. Each wave threatened his makeshift repairs. He watched the water closely, aware that the shark might reappear any minute. Relief washed over him as the coast finally came into view. Despite the boat's saturated condition, which barely responded to his commands, it was still progressing. Familiar landmarks like the rocky outcrops and the old lighthouse appeared on the horizon, guiding him back just as they had guided his father and grandfather before him. Haruto's return to the harbor was not unnoticed. They gathered on the dock after a distress signal that he had sent out alerted them to his plight. The villagers rushed to his aid, helping him fix the boat and treating his minor injuries. In the chaos, Haruto told his story: the shark attack, the damaged boat, and the terrifying return. The story spread fast, reminding everyone of the dangers they faced in a changing world. The village was moved by Haruto's story and called a meeting. The shark incident and the increasing frequency of predator encounters led to a discussion on the future. The changing ocean conditions are a threat and a call for adaptation. The community decided to invest in more durable boats with safety features that can withstand unexpected encounters. It also decided to diversify its fishing practices by incorporating aquaculture, which could sustain them and not rely on the unpredictable open sea. The village also contacted marine scientists to understand better sharks' behavior and that of other aquatic life. They hoped this knowledge would help them coexist peacefully with creatures of the sea. Haruto was once the symbol of old ways. He became a proponent of a new approach. He told his story to many people, highlighting the importance of adapting and respecting the ocean's strength. His experience catalyzed change, inspiring others to reconsider their relationship with the sea. Years later, the village was transformed. The town was now safer, more resilient, and more sustainable. Haruto is now older and still fishes, but with more caution. He would often sit by the shore and watch the newer, more robust boats navigate the same waters he used to roam freely in. He left a legacy that was more than just survival. It was a movement to ensure the community's survival in harmony with nature. The sun painted the north shore of Oahu in pink and gold as the surfers lined up on the beach. They were focused on the enormous waves. Mia Taylor was one of them, a professional surfer renowned for her fearless spirit and fierce competition. She was considered a firm favorite for the Pacific Surf Championship finals. As competitors paddled off, the crowd was buzzing with excitement. Each competitor was determined to show their skills on these infamous Hawaiian waves. Mia felt that familiar rush of excitement as she positioned her body, waiting for the perfect waves to ride. From the shore, her family and friends cheered for her. Their support was a constant strength. The crowd cheered as Mia caught the massive wave. She moved in perfect harmony with the waves, maintaining an ideal balance. A dark shadow appeared just as she was about to execute a crucial maneuver. The atmosphere changed from excitement to terror in an instant. The shark appeared without warning, its massive body cut through the water at a terrifying pace. Mia felt an intense pain in her left leg when the shark bit into it. She felt panic as she struggled with her head above the water. The spectators screamed, and the event safety team began racing toward her on jet skis. Mia's mind was racing with fear and shock as she was hurried to the shore on a jet ski. On the beach, medical personnel immediately administered first aid. She was taken to hospital immediately after the attack, which left a deep cut on her leg. The incident sent shockwaves throughout the surfing community. The attack was broadcast by news outlets worldwide, casting a shadow on the championship. It also sparked a heated discussion about the safety and security of surf competitions. The fact that the shark attack occurred at a high-profile surf competition, despite all safety measures being in place, was a cause for concern. A cascade of emotions replaced Mia's initial shock as she lay in bed. Physical pain was severe, but mental and emotional suffering was even worse. She replayed over and over the moment of attack, the fear and pain and what-ifs. She was still concerned about the safety of her fellow surfers, and she continued to love the sport. Mia was determined to ensure no surfer had to endure such a traumatizing experience. She began to speak up. She gave interviews from her hospital bed, urging a thorough review of safety protocol at surfing events. Her story, amplified because of her surfing status, attracted significant attention. Mia argued for improved emergency medical services at all surfing competitions and increased competition water surveillance, including using drones and spotters to detect sharks. Her firm, clear voice resonated with many and turned her tragedy into an effective campaign for change. As she began her recovery journey, Mia's campaign gained momentum. Surfers, safety advocates, and fans worldwide echoed her call for change. Her ordeal highlighted a crucial gap in safety measures for the sport. And thanks to her bravery and determination, steps are being taken to close that gap. Mia Taylor's call for better safety standards in surfing events quickly grew into a more significant movement. As Mia recovered, her hospital bed became a hub for strategy sessions with experts in safety, meetings with organizers of events, and media interviews. Mia's commitment to safer surf competitions grew with each public discussion and appearance. Her advocacy led her to establish the Mia Taylor Safety Initiative. This nonprofit organization is dedicated to improving surfing and other water sports safety protocols. The initiative worked with shark behavior and marine biologists to develop better risk management strategies. They advocated using shark deterrent technologies, such as electromagnetic or acoustic devices, that could be integrated into surf competitions without harming marine wildlife. The response of the surfing community has been overwhelmingly positive. Many prominent surfers who once thought they were invincible regarding the unpredictable ocean now supported Mia. They also shared their stories of close calls and other concerns, often kept secret for fear that they would cause panic or damage the sport's image. Mia's efforts also resonated with surfers' families and the wider public. Her initiative led to the creation of rapid response teams and highly trained medical and rescue personnel who can handle emergencies at sea. The teams trained local surfers in popular destinations and were stationed during significant competitions. Pacific Surf Championship was the first event to adopt these new standards. Mia had been attacked during this event. The competition the following year included new safety features, including drone surveillance, medical teams on site with trauma expertise, and multiple safety vessels equipped with shark deterrent systems. Mia felt pride and nostalgia as she watched the game from the sidelines. Her leg had fully recovered, but her perspective was forever altered. She saw the ocean as it always was, but now with her marks. The surfers were confident, not only because of their skills and adrenaline, but also because they knew their safety would be taken seriously. Mia's advocacy had a far more significant impact than changing how the showing competitions are run. It started a global discussion about the relationship between people and wildlife. Understanding and respecting the natural habitats in which sport and recreation occur was highlighted. Mia's mission and story inspired schools and educational programs to include ocean safety and conservation issues. Mia's memoir, Beyond the Break, chronicled her transformation from a competitive surfer to a safety activist. It was a bestseller and inspired surfers and anyone facing adversity. Mia traveled the world to speak at conferences and workshops. She was committed to promoting resilience and safety in the face of nature's challenges. Mia Taylor turned a personal tragedy into a legacy that embodied safety and empowerment. Her work and name lived on through the policies she helped shape and in the hearts and minds of those she inspired.